time. You know the place. It's Wednesday evening. It's the Rob and Steve Show. Here are your hosts, Rob and Steve.
It's click and clack.
Click and clack. That still makes me laugh. So, you notice I've got a new background.
Oh, very fancy.
You like that?
Very fancy altogether.
It's
there is a
for the-
reason for that. We'll
There
get
is a
to that
reason for
later.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Hello, Rob. How are you?
Hello, Steve. How are you? I'm good.
I'm
Thank
good,
you.
thanks. Yeah. Another Rob and Steve show. You're all very welcome. My goodness, we have 30 people in already, Mr. Rob, which is fantastic.
That's great.
I'm pretty sure that those people aren't here to see us.
No, definitely not.
No. But that's okay. That's why we do these things. As you've all seen, we have advertised through the social medias, and we've had some wonderful people sharing the video out as well across their socials, which is always appreciated. Thank you very much. For those of you that are new in the chat, in the live chat, we would like to welcome you, as well as we'd like to welcome all the people that are always with us every week. But if you are new to the show, we really appreciate if you can click that subscribe, click the thumbs up. There's a little bell next to subscribe, and if you click the top one of the three that it gives you, you'll get notified half an hour before the show starts, and you'll have a full hour and a half and sometimes more of Rob and Steve click and clack wonderfulness. Oh, look, there's a weird thumb popped in behind you there, Rob.
Did you see that? Where was that? Here.
It was that side, yeah. Oi, no.
There it is again.
Right.
Hey,
So, yes,
get out of there.
You're all
get
very
out of
welcome. Hello to everyone in the chat. There's too many to read off. We're not going to do that. That will take most of the show to do that. But you are all very welcome, and thank you.
Absolutely.
So yes, we have an interview this evening. We were we were very lucky to be able to interview the wonderful, lovely. She is lovely, and she is also in the chat somewhere.
So you can all talk to her and ask her questions.
Yes, the lovely Barbara, the queen of multi-access turning herself. She's a wonderful lady, as you are going to find out. We're going to jump straight into, I think we said, didn't we? We're going to jump straight into the interview.
Straight into the interview.
Yeah, it's about the same length as Ruby's interview.
Yeah.
Only the difference is that we were able to interview Barbara how you see us here. So it'll be like part of the show, which is a little bit easier. I know Rob was lucky enough just to live up the road. So
I think that's even a nice way of doing it. Even we could have done that with Ruby.
Maybe, yeah.
It's just, it didn't occur to me at the time, technology and all that good stuff. I had the old cine camera out.
The cine. Do you remember them?
Yeah.
The tape this size.
Yeah. I've got one back there. But
it's what you use to video Ruby.
No.
So anyway. Right, yes, we're going to jump straight into the video, folks. Sit back, enjoy. It's quite long, but it's really informative.
There's tons of information there.
Yeah. We will see you all on the other side of it. So,
absolutely. We'll be watching along with you.
Exactly. Enjoy, folks.
Enjoy.
Got an interview for you, which is fantastic. We've got the lovely Barbara. Hello, Barbara. How are you?
Hi, Barbara.
Hey, good.
Nice to see you.
Awesome. So Barbara has agreed to do an interview, our second interview, and our second young lady too, which is absolutely brilliant. Barbara, we're going to kick this off basically just with getting you to maybe start by introducing yourself and letting us know where you're from and kind of a little background of yourself, maybe.
All right. Well, I right now live in Rockville, Virginia, which is very close to Richmond, Virginia. I was born and raised in Middle Tennessee. My education is that I became a nurse and worked for 21 years as a nurse. I got my master's in psychiatric nursing, so I thought I could do some things in administration, but then I got burned out. And at the same time, when I was working in an emergency room here in Richmond as a psychiatric nurse, I started carving wood. So that's how I got into wood. I never worked with wood in my life before then. In terms of arts, though, my father was a professional musician, and my sister and I both played brass instruments. So that's sort of a musical, that's sort of an artistic endeavor.
Psychiatric nursing, that's a tough job.
Mm.
That's a tough job. My brother-in-law is in that job, and obviously my background with working with special needs as well, I kind of get some of that. So I can imagine you got burnt out pretty quick, for sure on that.
What burned me out more was the system and being in administration and not being able to do what was needed for good patient care. And that was like in the late 80s, early 90s. And healthcare has disintegrated even more since then.
Right.
I loved working with patients. I loved the excitement, everything I did as a nurse, but it does take its toll. But I think it was mostly the system.
Right. Yeah.
It's a shame.
Which is pretty much worldwide, unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah. But we'll not go down that path anyway, because that'd be a long path to go down. So, Barbara, you started turning in 1990.
Right.
You've said kind of basically why you started it, but was that the main reason for taking up wood turning, to kind of get your head into a better space, or?
Well, I was carving while I worked in the ER. I saw an image in the Smithsonian magazine of the most beautiful wooden object. And I said to Shelley, my wife, you know, if I ever could own something like this, I know I would have to make it myself. But those bowls that were in the Smithsonian were made by the Inuits centuries ago, and they were just beautiful. They spoke to me. And the next day in the mail came a flyer from Henrico Adult Education of a carving class, a mallet and chisel and carving. And I took that class. I'd crawl out of the emergency room and go and start learning how to work with wood and sharpen tools, carve wood. And I actually made this object along with other relief carvings that I made. But that's what got me started.
So the inspiration then was from older generations of artisans, from like the Inuits, the Indians, and I find that fascinating myself as well. Actually, specifically the Egyptian style of pottery, because there's a lot of pottery shapes that would suit wood turning,
right,
as well. So and that's kind of intriguing to me. I haven't actually gone down that path much yet, but that's kind of where I'm leaning towards soon. I did one Egyptian based piece a long time ago, but that was my early days, and it was a bit clumpy and clumsy, but I had a few mistakes with it. But it's a learning process through the years. I think it's something I'd like to try too. I think that's a fantastic piece you've got there.
Thank you. So when I was able to quit my job as a nurse, I guess in the meantime, I started going to craft shows, and I saw turned wood, and I thought, I bet I could do that. All I would need is a lathe and somebody to teach me. So I went to Aramont in the summer of 1990, and Michael Hosseluk was my first teacher. I was the only woman there, and I had no idea what a headstock or a tailstock was. And it was a design class not intended for beginners. But I survived the week.
Yeah.
And people were really kind to me, and I fell in love with that process and came home that summer and bought a General lathe, and I've been turning ever since.
Awesome. So who has inspired you in the wood turning world as you've kind of made your journey from the start to now? Like, is there any big inspirations that you've kind of based loosely of what you do now on, or?
2 or 3 years later, I went to a world turning show in Delaware, and I saw all this multi-axis stuff. And Mark Sperry from America was one of those. I think Michael was involved in very creative and playful ways to use the lathe. But I was always intrigued with multi-axis work. But in terms of who inspired me in general, just the first 3 teachers I had were Michael Hosseluk, Ray Key, and then David Ellsworth. And all these people who could teach and make these beautiful forms were really inspiring. But the most inspiring thing to me was, after having been a nurse for so long and being around tragedy and pain and sickness and wonderful things that come with that as well, at the end of the day, I thought it was magical to have taken a piece of wood and then have something to show something I made with these hands.
Yeah.
And I would say, wow, look at this.
Absolutely.
And I continue to enjoy that. I continue to think this is such a magical way to work with wood. It's instant. You can make functional pieces. You can make artistic pieces. You can do all sorts of things with the lathe in terms of the axes. The sky is the limit. And I don't think one of those things is any better than the other. It's what gives us the joy, I think.
Absolutely. The sky's the limit, but unfortunately our brain is the limit when it comes to working out where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the transition from nursing to then the career of wood turning, was that a hard transition, or was it an easy transition? Was it something you did straight away, or was it just a gradual move into it?
It was probably gradual. I mean, I just wanted to go to craft shows and make enough money to pay for my toys. You know, the war, there was a war that broke out that I felt a little guilty. I wasn't a nurse because I thought we'd have a tremendous amount of casualties and I should go back. But then that didn't happen. So, you know, I feel a little guilty along the way that I'm not being a nurse. On the other hand, I've had such pleasure doing what I do and traveling and meeting people. So it's been amazing.
That's great.
Yeah. Have you found that the professional side of wood turning and that whole circuit, has that changed much over the years, or has it been pretty much a similar kind of journey over the years?
I don't know. I started traveling and teaching around 2006 when I started understanding multi-axis turning, spindle turning. And I tried to limit it because I'm an introvert and I don't really like to travel that much, but I enjoy teaching and watching the light bulb go off when people get it. So for me, it was just maybe 8 or 10 travel sessions, whether to symposiums or clubs in Canada or the United States. It was always very fulfilling. I at the end got a little tired of just zooming into somewhere, teaching, and then coming home and not really seeing that place. So the last couple of years, I would say to people, I want to come a little early. Will you show me around and, you know, get a little more with that.
Make it more fun. Yeah. I suppose it's like any kind of rock star side of anything. It's all well and good sharing your art, but not when you're just there for a minute and then gone again. You know.
Yeah, teaching is like a whole other aspect of the craft. To be able to get your knowledge to give it to someone else and see them making it, that's a really, really cool thing to do. So yeah, you don't all get to do that, and it's difficult too. Don't you find it's initially when you're first teaching somebody, if you've not done it before. I mean, when I know myself, when I've tried to teach people initially, I was teaching several years ago, and I just didn't feel like I was the right person to do that. But then when you realize how much you know compared to what they know, then you do have knowledge that you can pass on.
Right.
So, but it's just a whole other aspect of the wood turning. It's neat.
Yeah, and you know, in 2006, I really challenged myself to figure out a way to think about multi-axis spindle turning, because in the 90s, I had made hundreds of spindles that I made by randomly changing the axis and then defining a new axis. Here's another one. And every time I made one, I thought, oh, that's so cool. You know, how cool is that? And then by the end of the 90s, and here's another one that actually has an arc type and a circular type on it, but I had no idea what I had done, how I had done it, how to repeat it, how to about it. So when I really settled in and thought there must be a way to understand this, and I started understanding it, boy, I was clumsy at teaching it. If I didn't have these samples there so I could show people, but through the years, it's made a lot more sense to me. It seems like a pretty simple construct that I've figured out in terms of the axis and the types of outcomes, and it makes a lot of sense. So, now it's a lot easier for me to teach now that I'm older and don't want to travel as much.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of leads into one of the longest questions, and I found it hard to kind of word this, so bear with me. But like, you've obviously spent thousands of hours in front of the lathe, mastering your technique and your way of doing the multi-axis turning. How long and how many hours, as it were, did it take before actually the penny dropped and you thought, actually, I can break this down into the 4 quadrants, and I can actually teach this a lot easier now because I understand it? How long did it take for it to actually click and know what you were actually doing, from just playing to actually turning out something that you were aiming for?
Well, that's a hard question because I had turned so many of these things in the 90s. And then when I really started figuring it out, one of my friends here in Richmond, Tom Crabb, who also thought outside the box on his turnings, I gave a little talk to my club that summer of 2006. And Tom understood. I mean, he knew I was just beginning to get it, but he said, you got to do this at our Virginia symposium. So I did. And I know those guys suffered for 2 hours, and finally it all came together. And one guy came up to me and said, boy, I thought I was in the wrong place, but I understand it now. And so it's taken, I mean, I've been obsessed about this. I think about it. It's always on a back burner. I used to wake up, once I figured that out, I'd wake up in the morning and I'd say, oh, I haven't done parallel axes and da-da-da. So I'd run out to my shop and I'd do that. And writing about it was tremendously difficult because I was creating a new vocabulary to talk about axes, to define the axes as you turn a multi-axis spindle. And it was hard to organize the thinking in order to write articles. But I finally produced a PowerPoint presentation that would help me start with a very simple concept and then break it down and make it easier for people to follow. And that was sort of the basis for a little book that I created to sell, and then the book that I've written.
That's awesome. Do you have the book there with you?
Oh, of course.
Of course you do. Of course you do. Of course you do.
This is the book.
So that's your book.
There it is, yeah.
So that's your book. When did you write that?
I wrote it. It was published in the summer of 2018, and I was writing on it for the previous year and a half.
Right.
I thought, oh, I've already written a little book. It'll be easy, but I had to format it. I had to draw the drawings, all the pictures I took. It was, and it was just, it was hard. And
I'm sure. Yeah.
Got it done. Yeah.
So you're self-published, are you? It's a self-published book,
this was published by Schiffer Books in Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
How difficult was that process?
I really can't tell you online.
Okay. So it was a difficult process.
Let's just say that I probably will never write another book.
Right. Well, that answers that question. I'll delete that question then.
Yeah. Well,
the next question. Would you do it again?
I actually did just order your book last week, so that should be coming through Amazon. Actually, I got it from Amazon. Yeah. Admittedly, I'm not much of a spindle turner, especially not multi-axis. I know Steve does a lot of artistic pieces himself, and it's fun to watch. When Steve does his shows, I've noticed that he's always doing something for the first time. So it's not like he's practiced something and he's mastered it and then he's going to present it to people, friends, and whatever on his channel. But he's doing it for the first time, and that's a daring thing to do, if you ask me.
Well, I'd like to say something about that. I've enjoyed watching that whenever I have. And I was telling my friends, I'm going to be on this interview with these guys from Ireland and Canada, and it's going to be on YouTube. And I call them the click and clack of turning. Now, do you know who click and clack are?
No.
They're in the States. They were the most popular radio show on for years. They were two mechanics who lived in Boston. They were brothers, and they had this hour-long show about auto maintenance. And they were hilarious. And and people would call in and say, well, I've got this sound in my car. What does it sound like? You know, it would make laugh. But I said, I'm going to be on the Click and Clack show for
Awesome. I'll
great.
take that. I'll take that.
It's a compliment. You have a lot of fun with it. I've always loved Steve's attitude about, I'm going to try this and see what happens. And I've enjoyed watching the two of you present ideas and stuff. So
there's a lot of information out there, and especially for new turners, it's hard to know where to get that information from. So we're trying to get some good information from people such as yourself. They've been turning a long time. Ruby's been turning a long time. So to get information from people like yourselves, it's priceless. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially when it's something that's not readily available and not being done every day. I mean, there's literally thousands of bowl turning wood turners out there. There's literally thousands of turners that turn spindle work, but there's only a handful of wood turners that can not only do multi-axis turning, but actually know what they're doing and can explain the whole process properly. And that's what is worth its weight in gold, is having someone that can actually make you feel comfortable that you can approach the lathe and attempt it when you've got air flipping in front of your face at whatever many thousand revs per minute that you're actually brave enough to do. And you're actually having that's the reason why I do it, when you can feel the air hitting your face from the piece and the dugga 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 sound of the tool on it, you know, and it's just it's exciting. It's
I love the way that wood dances as it's rolling around too. It's not only the sound, but it's the visual of it all. It's very
right when it starts making its shape. And starts forming. That's what I mean. That's the piece that I did the other day. It's a new thing that I'm working on, and when that's spinning and you can see a sphere just hovering, it's literally just hovering in the middle of the piece of wood as it's spinning. It's mesmerizing. You know, I'm not going to lie. I actually had to turn the lathe off and sit down for a while because I was getting, I don't know whether it was hypnotizing me or what, but I was getting dizzy from. I was so engrossed in it and so excited with what was appearing and that something I was doing was actually working, that I was actually starting to get dizzy and kind of feeling a bit lightheaded. So I had to turn it off and step back and have a cup of tea for a while and just kind of go back to it again, because it was just, well, it was head wrecking, to be honest with you, but it was good fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, with wood turning evolving now, you know, we're seeing books slowly fade away, and we're seeing well-known magazines slowly disappear or go online. How have you been able to adapt, if at all, to the digital world of wood turning and the online process of teaching and stuff like that, YouTube and stuff like that? How have you been able to adapt to that? Have you adapted to it, or are you still adapting?
I'm in the process. I live in rural Virginia, where our Wi-Fi is horrible. So when COVID hit and this pandemic hit, and I had to stop teaching, traveling and teaching, I thought, well, that's it for me. I'm 75 now. I should retire. You know, I've written the book, and I sort of felt a relief about thinking, okay, I've done that. But now I miss it. And so Trent Bosch had asked me to do a couple of teaching sessions on his platform, which I did. But my Wi-Fi from my house is so bad that it was frustrating. Whenever I played a video, it was delayed and blurry. And when I would talk, I don't know if I'm in sync now with you because I'm at a friend's house, but when I would talk, they would say, oh, your speech is way different than what, you know. So then I talked to my friend Susan, who lives 6 miles from my house in Wyco County, and they have Wi-Fi that's wired in. And she said, you can have this upstairs bedroom. There's Wi-Fi here. This is your office whenever you need to do any broadcasting or whenever you want to teach. And this is a brand new thing. And you're the first people I've come down here and done this with. And
awesome.
it's working nicely for me.
It is,
That's great.
And it looks like you have plenty of room for a Powermatic there behind you as well, which is brilliant.
I'm sure they wouldn't mind me bringing it up the stairs. The whole house would vibrate. But, you know, the other challenge was for me to be able to teach and not have the Wi-Fi in my shop. So I've created a lot of PowerPoint presentations that are embedded with videos showing me doing these things, and I'm able to talk about it. And I actually think that this way of teaching with PowerPoint presentations, or it's keynote presentations where I can show the drawing, show images, and then show it in action, you can teach this much in this little town because you don't have to wait to put the piece of wood on the lathe and then da-da-da. So I like this new way of teaching. I think you can really show a lot of people a lot of stuff in a short amount of time.
I think right now with YouTube especially, there's two types of video for wood turning. One is purely for entertainment value, and it might only be 10 minutes. Whereas others are more educational. I've just done a couple of recordings for Ruby where she's demonstrating a couple of things, and the videos are over an hour long. Now, the majority of people that are looking at entertainment purposes, they just want to see a bit of wood spin for like 10 minutes and they're gone. The average view time is about 7 minutes for a YouTube video, but I think that is the entertainment side of it, whereas there's the educational side of it as well. So it's hard sometimes defining the two because they're two different areas of what's on YouTube available. Whereas you're talking PowerPoint presentations, where would you bring them to? What platform would you put them on?
We've been using on Zoom. I can share the screen on Zoom. I can show that stuff. I can talk about it. So it makes it really easy. This platform I'm not familiar with, but I'm sure I could probably do it here where it says show, share. I guess that's share your.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You can pretty much do what you can do on Zoom with this, but the good thing about this platform is that you can broadcast straight to YouTube. So you can go live and you can do your demonstration straight to YouTube. You don't have to put Zoom through it and stuff like that. You can literally do whatever you want to do and off. But you can share your PowerPoint and you can do everything with this too. So yeah, I think there's so many different platforms. It's hard to know which one to use, but Zoom is definitely the teaching platform, we'll say, for professionals. It seems to be what a lot of the professionals are using these days.
Alternatively, pre-record whatever you want and then present it at a later time. So like, you know, you can download that somewhere that does have good internet service, or upload it, I should say. So you don't have to do it necessarily right at the lathe straight to online. You could bring it from there to somewhere else and release it. So there are lots of different ways of doing it for sure.
Listen to Rob sounding all technical. That's very unlike Rob.
I know what I'm talking about.
I continue to have invitations from clubs in the United States to teach. Yeah. And for a while I said, I'm retired, I'm not doing it. But now I'm making a plan. I think what I'm going to do is create a video that has all the concepts, the drawings, all the things, the theory of this, and have that to sell for people. And then I might create 4 or 5 project demos that I can then say to these clubs, I'm back, and this is what I have to offer. I'll do a 3-sided cup, and I'll go through the whole process of making this, but I can talk about the theory behind this. How do you place the axes, and how do you do this and that? So I can make a project that people can make and embed it with the ideas that I think are important, because my basic interest is to share this knowledge so people can think for themselves and not just copy something, but actually take this a step further and make another form or do it with different axes or different twists. I think it's so important to understand how it works so that you create your own voice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. It is frustrating as hell sometimes when you put that piece of wood on and you've got it doing the thing and you do that cut and you think, yeah, this is perfect. Okay, so Barbara says do an arc here, do a cove here, do an arc here, then move it one to two, two to, and then you turn the machine off and it just looks like a stick you've picked up out of the woods. It's just.
You mean it doesn't look like this?
Very rarely looks like very rarely looks like that.
You asked me how much time I've spent doing this. I mean, I was a bowl turner during the 90s. I was just fascinated in making these little candle holders. But when I got really interested and started figuring things out, the next thing was, oh my gosh, I understand it, but it's going to take so long to sand these things that this is a ridiculous direction to go in. Plus, nobody's interested anyhow. But it's been my passion for all these years. And the more you do it, the smoother your cuts get.
Right.
So sanding is less.
And wood choice too, right? Different woods are going to give you a different cut. So what kind of woods do you tend to lean towards when you're making your off-center pieces? I
am passionate about turning green woods. We have beautiful forest here in the South. I love cherry to make functional things. Because wine, lipstick and wine and stuff don't really stain. Darker woods, cherry and walnut. I love working with holly. We have a lot of holly in this.
Yeah. Holly is beautiful wood.
Yeah, it's easy to cut, and if it's green, it's soft. I mean, most woods when they're green are easier to cut, and that's important to me to be able to make a smooth cut and not stress out so much about it. So.
You mentioned about putting wine in your cups or your goblets or whatever. So what kind of a finish do you put inside your vessels?
Well, I sand the inside, and then long ago I decided that I could use cyanoacrylate glue, CA glue.
Okay, yeah.
So I soak it with thin CA glue, swirl it around, make sure it doesn't leave a puddle in the bottom, which I hate. And that's why.
Yeah.
And then if it needs to be sanded, hit it with 400 sandpaper. And redo that every day for 2 or 3 days. And the wood becomes embedded with an inert plastic and it holds water. And the first goblets I made were from this red oak tree that fell in my woods. And you know how red oak has these open grain. And I could even make a goblet out of that and seal it with CA glue and it would hold water or wine.
Perfect. That's good to know.
What would you say to the people that say that CA isn't a finish? There's a lot of people that would
we all have
argue that.
I don't care. It's worked for me for all these years, and that's okay. I mean, there are plenty of other ways to do it. I always, my mentor thought epoxies were the way to go, but the 2-part epoxies that I used at first, I could taste it. CA glue, I don't taste it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, I found something that works for me, and it works for me.
Right. That's the most important thing, surely.
Yeah, so that's good to know, though. It gives people options for finishing inside of vessels that they want to use. Because I personally don't think that when you create something, you turn something like, I don't know, like a bowl here. You don't want to go ahead and pour some soup in there and start eating it. You're going to wreck it. That's the way I look at it anyway. Whenever I make something, I don't know about you guys, but the first question is, can I eat out of it? It's like, why do you want to eat out of it? It's a centerpiece for the table, But
I, on the other hand, love touching it, love being able to use it.
Yeah.
So I created lots of bowls that I finished with CA glue that I use for cereal or soup.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So you finish bowls on the inside with CA?
If I want to use them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not just for salads, because salad bowls are fine with oil and, just finish.
Yeah.
But if I want to use them for my cereal in the morning, which I like to do, then I'll put CA glue on the inside as well.
That's cool. Do you carve spoons as well or no?
A few, but not a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I've still yet to do one, but I want to do one of the Welsh love spoons. Do you know with all the intricate carving and stuff? It's just finding the several hundred hours it's going to take to carve it.
Right,
that's the hard thing.
Yeah.
So my hope over the years is that wood turning continues through the younger generation, that we bring the younger generation and wood turning continues. Do you feel that it's being introduced enough to the younger generation? I know that here in Ireland, the schools don't even have lathes anymore. They don't have teachers that know how to turn and teach wood turning, and the older skills and things like that are being lost. And then when you show the newer generation, because there isn't a tablet attached to the lathe, they don't generally tend to be interested. Are you finding that it's maybe going to be a lost art, or is enough being done with introducing it?
I think the schools have sort of given up on their education in the this kind of education. But I think our wood turning clubs, a lot of us, including the club here in Richmond, we reach out to the scouts. I volunteer and go into schools, and the second and third graders sit on the floor and their mouths are wide open. So a lot of us are sharing our information and going to where kids are. Science fairs, our science museum here, my club is very active in having a hands-on day, a lot of lathes out there, not letting people turn, but having them watch us turn. So a lot of us are doing what we can to show people about wood turning.
Yeah, I just feel, especially, I don't know what the guilds and things like that are like in Canada and the US, but I know the guilds are near enough scared to have any juveniles or youth into the club to actually do turning. I don't know. They just seem a little bit worried to introduce and have kids coming into it. I think a lot of it is to do with insurance and disclaimers and stuff like that. But I just think it's something that a lot more can be done to allow it to happen. You know, even if there was a junior guild maybe formed or something like that, just to, you know. I don't know. I just hope it enough's being done anyway, because I'd hate for it to.
I think safety is a big key, right? People are scared that if they're teaching somebody, even if you're teaching adults, the last thing you want is for anybody to hurt themselves. And it doesn't matter, right? If you tell them what to do, they might still do something that they shouldn't be doing because you didn't tell them not to, or whatever. So people can still get hurt. You know, if they don't tighten up the quill, and if that backs off a little bit, that's not a good day.
Or you tell them not to, and they do it anyhow. Like
Exactly.
And some of the guys, I'd say, turn the speed down, and they walk away, and they go, you know.
Yeah.
You never know. You know, I'm of the generation of Southern education in the 50s and the 60s that girls weren't allowed into shop. So a lot of girls, we never got exposed to these manual arts, you know, building and stuff. So a lot of people, though, are coming into wood turning as they get older. They have the money to buy a lathe. They have more time because they're retiring. So that's good.
It's not a cheap pastime, that's for sure.
Right.
No, I think also kind of, if you went back to the social media side of it as well, I think social media has a huge part in bringing a lot more female and younger turners into it as well, and they're being more accepted, for want of a better word. I mean, that's not how it should be, but you know, that's you know, you're tending to get a lot more females and kids actually being brave enough to actually say, look, hey, I can do this, and I'm pretty damn good at it too. And showing themselves. YouTube's brilliant. There's some brilliant wood turners on there that are really enjoyable to watch, and in the demonstration side.
I was going to say, what's your opinion of YouTube when it comes to wood turning and learning from YouTube? What's your opinion?
I think it's a lot of fun. I've seen some of the threads that are being written about the dangers of watching people who are unsafe, but I think, you know, that's true in any walk of life. So I think all of us we have to trust each other and ourselves to know what we're not going to do and what we can do and what's within our safety limit and what isn't. But all in all, I mean, we had some ice storms around here, and I spent all day on YouTube videos, and I'd go from one to another. And I was very much entertained, and it was very educational. So you just
it's always good to learn things from other people, and it could be just a simple thing as learning a little jig that you can make to make one thing easier. There's tons out there to learn for sure.
Right.
We already know that Barbara's not a jig maker, though. That's why she perfected her art in the way she has. She won't even make end caps.
That's exactly. So I saw split turnings in the 90s, and I did put the caps together to make a little turning, and I thought, this is way above me. I'm not going to do that. But all of the work that I do is basically between centers. I don't use a lot of jigs other than a 4-jaw chuck in case I want to do something with chucked on one end. But the other reason I was so passionate about figuring this out is, in the 90s and even now, there's so much talk about copying. You're copying somebody. Yeah. And so I didn't want to go to a demonstration and see somebody, say, turn a simple object, which is not a signature piece, and then go home and make it, and everybody saying, you copied somebody. That's not, this is a concept. This is a way of turning, like natural edge bowls and like other things. It's a fun way to make objects. There are some signature pieces or some original pieces that I won't teach you all the ins and outs about how I did it. But basically, candle holders, like here's like that. It's 3-sided, just like this cup. So if you know how to think about things, you change the size and the shape of the wood, and you can end up making all these really different objects from a very simple spindle, such as this simple spindle.
Oh, yeah, simple.
So there's a lot of talk about copying, and that's why I've been so invested in teaching people how to think about it. So, and none of these things that I'm showing you are signature pieces. These are pieces that, if you can make a set of these and give them as gifts for weddings or sell them, people love this stuff. They love it. Elegant, wonderful. Nobody owns any of these ideas. What I might own is a piece that it took me a month to figure things out. And if I teach you that, then I'm actually giving that away. So I only teach the things that you can have,
What about the things that are yours that you have invented? Who gets to know about them in the future, or will they get lost with you?
No, they won't, because I slowly am saying, I made some candlesticks. They're split candlesticks, and they look sort of like cobras.
I know the ones. Yeah, they're cool.
4 candlesticks, and it took me. I submitted the very first ones. I had luck. I did it. I was lucky. I submitted them to Betty Scarpino, the editor. She published them on the inside cover of one of the journals. And then I thought, well, I'll make those again. And it took me a month to figure out how the curves. And so that's a guarded piece of information, although there's a 10-minute thing on my YouTube channel about the process and how to do it, because so many people were interested. So, I'm not guarding anything at this age. I'm just, I really want to encourage people to figure it out. Like my waveform, which I don't have, it is just a piece of wood that's squarish, not long. And it's simply coves that are twisted at 90 degrees. That's all. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly how far out the axes were. You figure that out, but that's how these forms develop, because I can take a bigger, longer piece and then make it into a smaller piece. So, yeah.
Well, I tell you what you do, Barbara, is record all those little secrets.
Yeah.
Put them onto your YouTube channel, unlisted, so people can't see them, and then give me the code to your to all your videos. Okay.
Okay.
And then, that sounds like a plan to me. Okay. At least someone knows how to do them then.
Yeah.
then Steve can guard them. Yeah.
There are not that many signature pieces that I've made. Yeah. I just forms. I just love the forms.
Yeah. Okay, so Barbara, you go to bed tonight and you wake up in the morning in the past, way back when it all started. Would you do it again? And if you do, would you do anything differently?
I would absolutely do it again. This has been a total surprise in my life to have so much joy coming from turning wood. And I'm surprised that I figured out this stuff and that people wanted to learn it. So I have no regrets, and there's not anything I would do different. I've loved every minute of it. I've loved the people who've opened their homes to me, and you get to see how people live and what they eat. And I mean, it's just been a fantastic journey.
That's fantastic. I have one very fond memory of a couple of years ago, pre-lockdown, of myself, Yuval Lahav and Leona Faye in a garage while we were on vacation here in Ireland, and there was we'd rented a house, and Yuval had come over from Italy, and we went live on Facebook, or
I watched that
or whatever. And who should pop up in the chat but Barbara Dill? And I mean, I've been following you for a long time, as you know. I love your stuff, and I'm trying to master it. But Yuval decided he was going to try and do an off-center piece, and the instructions and the fun that we had of you saying, no, do a cove there, and Yuval not doing it right, and then he chose to use a skew, and you were like, no, you need a gouge. And it was just it's just a really fond memory, and it's for that reason why we do what we do, is for those memories and to learn the skills from people like yourself. So I thank you for that memory anyway, because that was absolutely fantastic.
That. It was so much fun.
Yeah. I've one more question before we kind of start winding it up. You say a lot of your turning is between center.
Yes.
And just mentioning the gouge and the skew. I know you've got your own kind of grind that you like when you're doing all the deep hollows and cuts, but also on the other side of it, have you tried, or what's your thoughts on the new eccentric chucks that you can get, and all the new off-centered tools and things like that you can get? Are they something that you use, or you even need to use with the skill that you've learned over the years?
I don't need to use the off-center chucks. If I were Jean-Francois and wanted to make a very delicate thing, maybe I would, but I've learned how to use the tenon to offset it for a twisted axis. And there are ways to offset things for parallel axes and hold it on. So I've never really needed a chuck. A lot of people buy them. A lot of people like them. A friend from Florida several summers ago sent me his chuck and said, you can use it for the summer. I got it out of the box and I looked at it and I thought, I don't know, the learning curve is going to be bigger than the time I want to spend on that. So I just continued my path. But I've been a very simple turner. I use a spindle gouge and a bow gouge. I use, points on either end, and everything I've done, I've been able to do that way. So
is it a 30-degree grind that you use on your gouge? Is that right? On your spindle gouge?
30 degrees, and sometimes it's more slender than that, and sometimes it's fatter. But it's my skew. It's my way I can make a V cut very nicely. And I use a half-inch bowl gouge, and it's sharpened like flat on the top and 45-degree angle. It's sharpened like a spindle roughing gouge, but it's a bowl gouge. I had those in the 90s. We used to rough out bowls with two bowl gouges. One was a roughing gouge, and one was the wings sharpened back. And I had that. And for coves like here, I use the tool that gives me the smoothest edge. And so whatever tool that is. So the spindle gouge does the V cuts and most of the bead, and the bowl gouge will do my coves, so that I can get the smoothest cut I can get just off the lathe. There are very few other tools that I use other than a parting tool. So. Right.
Well, listen, Barbara, it's been an absolute delight having you. It's been a fantastic interview. It's just you've made it easy for us. You really have.
That's for sure.
It's been a lot of fun, and I'm for one delighted. I know we've spoken on Messenger and we've called each other in the past, but it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Barbara, and hopefully it's not the last time we'll be talking like this and having a conversation. We'd love to have you on the show, maybe live one day once we've
do a little demo, maybe.
Yeah, maybe
get possible.
Yeah,
pre-recorded maybe.
But you have, Steve, you have to show that piece that you did because that's spectacular.
I don't have it here.
Oh,
I don't have it here. But I tell you what, I will show it on the show tomorrow evening when we do this. But I will show it. Yeah.
Brand new idea. Nobody's done it. I love it. And it's just what I talk about the size and the shape of the wood being a variable, and the way you put it on the lathe. And you put it on the lathe so that it's swinging this way instead of that way.
Right.
And created something that I think is quite awesome. So that's
thank you. I'll have you know, everybody, that Barbara tried it yesterday in her shop. She started creating an integral. I'm still trying to work out what to call it. Integral sphere is what I'm kind of thinking of going, or even a captive sphere, maybe. I don't know. But yeah, I was blown away to see pictures sent to me of the legendary Barbara Dill trying a concept that I'm trying to
work. It was a lot of
work
fun.
on.
It really was. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Well, listen, thank you so much, Barbara.
Of wood turning, you have to find out what that show is, because you are the click and clack of it.
Who's click and who's clack?
I don't know. But that's a high compliment. That's a really good compliment.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much, Barbara. Just before you go, if you want a really cool book to learn lots, go and look up Multiaxis Spindle Turning, A Systematic Exploration. I shall put you on full screen there so that you can
put a
go
link
check
in the
that book
description.
out. The link will be in the description below, and go check that out. You can get it on Amazon, and I think Google Books do it as well. You can get it on Google Books, I think. But it's,
I'm looking forward to getting mine.
I can send you a signed copy, but you have to pay postage. It's $30 on Amazon, but postage to you guys would be horrible. But if you live in the States, I can send you a copy.
And customs, that customs word.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Also, Barbara does have a YouTube channel. Are you still continuing with the series that you started? I know you started kind of putting a couple of short videos up on the different forms and styles.
I'm going to continue that channel. Yes, I am. Yes. Excellent.
Brilliant. Yeah. So again, the link is in the description below. So if you go and follow Barbara, like, share, and subscribe, and all that stuff. And I tell you what, if you have a question to do with multi-axis turning, then Barbara is always willing to answer questions. I'm sure that she'll answer any questions you have and put you on the right path. Thank you very much, Barbara. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yeehaw! There you go, folks. What an awesome interview. I hope you enjoyed that. It was brilliant to watch it back. I've just caught Rob out, I think. He was twiddling my buttons.
I was typing back to Ruby. Ruby said, I can read hers. Well, of course, she's got a copy. She's got everything. Possibly, she's got everything imaginable in her workshop. It's insane. I mentioned
got
things.
A signed copy too.
Oh, no doubt. I mentioned things to her. She's probably got the first edition, the first copy. I mentioned things to her like, oh, I've seen this jig and I'm thinking I might get it. She goes, oh, I've got one of those.
Yeah, exactly. No.
That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed watching that back.
Yeah, it was. It's really cool because, I mean, I edited it. I can't say that word, Rob. I edited it.
It's like, you know what? You know what I can't say is Canada Day. What happened? We have an interlude, a brief interlude. Everything okay?
Excuse me. I had a Robbie visiting me and saying goodnight again for the 96th time this evening.
Bless him.
Bless him. Sarah! Yes. My apologies. That does put me off when he does that. Yeah, so awesome interview. When I edited it, I cut very little out. It was only the hums and ahs that myself and Rob did, a couple of awkward collisions that we did that happens on live sometimes. That's all I took out of it. I took no information out. That was pretty much how it happened. So thank you very much, Barbara. That was absolutely awesome.
I just need to learn to be quiet so Steve can talk.
Yeah, well, or speak up loud. Speak up louder.
Hey, yeah, that's okay. Click. Apparently, you're Click.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah. So you're Clack. So
I'm
in
Clack.
future, our names will be Click and Clack.
Click and Clack.
That
might be copyrighted. That might be copyrighted.
Well, I Click Steve, Clack Rob.
Yeah, there you go.
I just want to read this. Barbara just sent this to me in Messenger afterwards. I'm going to read it exactly how she said it to me, just so that you get it. I hope I made this point in the interview. I spent years in the 90s trying to find forms by randomly switching the axis, and only in 2005 actually came up with the one form that I like. It became the basis of the piece called Harmony years later. Once I figured out how all these spindles are related with their axes and outcomes, I've been able to consistently find cool forms. The sky is the limit. And I love that part at the end of that. Thanks for that, Barbara. The sky is the limit. Because I'm making a lot of mistakes, making a lot of wood chips on the floor with nothing as a result other than wood chips on the floor. It's because of that I've been able to work out certain things, and it's helped me with tool control. It's helped me with air turning. It's done so much, and the sky is the limit.
Especially like Steve, the sky is definitely the limit if that piece of wood comes off the lathe.
Yeah, well, no, the ceiling is the limit. The ceiling.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
Because not many turn outside. I've done it, but
you've done it.
Yeah, you've done it. And I promised Barbara that I would do this as well. This is the piece. She did say, "Can I show it?" This is the piece that I was working on. This is kind of a new thing that I'm working on. I've got another one on the lathe at the moment, and this is the. I don't know what to call it. A captive sphere. Integral sphere, and then I've got the multi-axis twist there as well. Yeah, so that's kind of what I've been playing with as well. So thanks for mentioning that too, and I was delighted to see Barbara tried it too. So that's Barbara anyway. Let's move. Well, we're kind of moving on, but yeah, let's do some of this
news.
News.
Yeah, you got some news, Rob.
I've got some news. Yeah, there's a couple of things actually. First of all, I'm going to mention the fact that Ruby Claire now has her own YouTube channel, and last night I managed last night to upload a bunch of her videos on her channel. So go check that out. She's got some her videos fall into the educational section of YouTube. So hers are instructional and they're thorough, which is how you're going to learn. You're going to learn from her videos, definitely. So go check her YouTube channel out. She's how many subscribers has she got right now? About 120, 130. So she needs everyone to subscribe.
Yeah, she's up there. She's getting up there now, which is brilliant.
Well, she had literally she literally had 5 subscribers just 2 or 3 days ago.
She says she now has 240 subs.
Brilliant. Good stuff. So it's heading in the right direction. Awesome. Yeah. So, and that's literally within the week, within 3 or 4 days. So that's great.
Yeah. Well deserved too.
Sorry?
Well deserved.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
2,000 or 3,000, definitely.
So the other news is the online virtual wood show is this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That's why this sign is here, because that's my backdrop for the wood show. I'll be there with all these products that I sell. You were talking
shocking
about shocking advertising.
Do I get a part of this?
Yeah, you get a part of it. All right. Remember that free jar of finish that I sent to you like 5 years ago, and it's still good to this day.
I still use it.
And it's still good. Yeah. So people, if you want wood finishes, I've got all the Hampshire Sheen, Yorkshire grits, and the Mylands products now. And I'm bringing in the melamine lacquer and another oil. I can't remember what it is though. There's a bunch of new products coming in.
Orange oil.
No, it was
Yep,
another.
orange oil, no?
I've got the food safe oil, but there was something else. There's 2 or 3 other things coming in anyway. So check them out. Look at the website there, woodleysummercraft.ca, and hopefully there's something there to finish whatever you're working on. But that's not why we're here. News.
You will have to travel to Canada to get it, of course.
Well, I only sell in Canada, so I know there's a bunch of Canadians in the chat. Not everybody is in Canada, but if you want to travel to Canada and stop by my shop, you're more than welcome once COVID's all gone. So Woodsley's a lovely little town.
It
is. Yeah. What was the other news? I think that's all. The wood show, yeah. I said the wood show, so that's the 5th, 6th, and 7th. Basically, there's a bunch of live demonstrations, some pre-recorded demonstrations, and a bunch of people trying to sell you stuff. I'm actually going to mention. I'm trying to think of their name now. Stockroom Supply. They're in Canada. I'm going to bring them up again in a few minutes, but that's one of the guys that does a lot of demonstrations, Nathan, and it's all bandsaw stuff, bandsaw related stuff. So we'll talk about that in a minute, because he's got a couple of jigs that are really cool. I don't personally own them, but they would definitely be cool to have.
Cool. I think you meant jigs and tools.
Yeah, that's the one. Jigs and tools now. Now you've changed it.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to mention this in the news. It's jumping back to Barbara. The link for this, I'm just going to share the screen for a second. Bear with me. I'm going to share. What am I going to share? I'm going to share this. So I wanted to share this. This is Barbara's. I believe it's Barbara's. It's either that or it's been stolen from Barbara and put up as a PDF up onto the Googles. I have put a link for this down in the description. It's a short paper. What is it? It's 11 pages, but it's got some really cool information on it. It shows you all the axes and stuff like that. It's really interesting. I'm not going to go too much into it because obviously it's a lot better if you go and look at it yourself. It's got a good few of Barbara's pieces on there. I wanted to bring this up mainly because we didn't get to see a lot of Barbara's stuff, because I'm not sure if she's got them with her or if they're at galleries or if she sold them or whatever. But it gives you a good example of just a tiny fraction of what she's done. It gives you a nice write-up, and it also introduces you to other people. This is something that I want to try one day, once I know I've got a head for doing something like this. This guy, Derek, if you get a chance to look him up at all, Derek Weidman, the stuff he does, he creates these sculptures just all from multi-axis turning. That's all from just turning in different directions and making these pieces. It's unbelievable, absolutely mind-blowing stuff, only to be a fraction of that level. So yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of stuff. There's a nice bum there too. So yeah, check that out. The link is down in the description. That's all I've got for news anyway.
Yes. So that's news. Yes. News.
That's the news.
Okay,
what do you want next?
Do you want to do Wood of the Week?
Right. Okay, I'll do that. Let's do this.
And now it's time for the Wood of the Week.
I love that.
That's crazy. Okay.
Wood of the Week. Hey, Monk.
This week's Wood of the Week is, what is it, Steve? You've got a picture there. It's Thuya Burl. Now, I've been pronouncing it wrong ever since I first purchased some Thuya. It's actually, I'll explain what the correct pronunciation is. But that's what this is, essentially.
Hold on, I'll put you on big screen. There you go.
That's essentially what that is. Thuya burl. It's got full of eyes, and it's beautiful wood.
Pretty.
Absolutely beautiful stuff. But let's talk about Thuya a little bit. So Thuya wood, which is pronounced Tuya. So two as in, Tuya. Apparently it's pronounced like that. I didn't know that. It's from the Thuya tree. And
figure.
It's from Morocco. That's where you get it from. This biblical tree is a conifer and from the cedar family and is exclusively native to Morocco. This highly prized conifer grows only in the forest of the Atlas Mountains, east of, and I can't pronounce it, Izora. That place. The beautiful coastal town, famous for its ancient and contemporary history, museums, art galleries, world music festivals, and above all for its Thuya wood craftsmanship. Thuya wood was highly prized by the Romans and the Greeks, and its oils were used in religious rituals and ceremonies. Thuya trees reach maturity over many decades. Still, the praised part of the tree is not the trunk, but it's the burl which is buried in the ground. The burl has a deeper color and more concentrated aroma. Another name for it is actually the citrus tree because it has like almost a citrus smell to it. And a fascinating grain. Today, these burls are very scarce and hard to locate, extract, and transport because they're high in the mountains. High demand over the centuries has created a reduced forest of the Thuya trees. And looking for underground burls is something like sifting through sand for grains of gold. Moreover, most of these burls are very small. Therefore, the fact that most of the items made from this luxurious wood are of the smaller nature. Another hindrance is that burls generally have large splits and defects that need to be cut out. When luck strikes and a large solid burl is found, it's a bid by the artisans and is sold to the highest bidder. Burls are moved from mountainous areas on mules and donkeys, as they are it's their only form of transportation suited to the task. All that having been said, the real value of the Thuya handcrafted goods is in the highly skilled artists who intricately design Thuya burls into breathtaking masterpieces. That's what it says anyway. Now,
so knowledgeable, Rob.
Well, I was reading the whole thing from Wikipedia, I think. I tried to make it like it was coming from my mind, but it really wasn't. So yeah, I was actually quite shocked at the price of Thuya from this particular website or page that I was looking at. It was literally hundreds of dollars for a piece that was sort of this size. It was like $300 or $400 for a piece like that size.
Wow.
I was lucky enough to import a whole bunch of it, and it didn't cost me that much. It was still expensive, but it's hard to sell. I find it hard to sell. People don't want to spend money on this wood, I guess. I don't know. It's beautiful wood. What I think I'm going to do, I think I'm going to turn one of these pieces live just to show what it's like. I've made pens out of pen blanks, and they're just beautiful, really beautiful. It's a very
beautiful.
It's beautiful wood. Yeah.
Steve Martin sung about that wood as well.
Yeah, it's a bit oily, so you have to.
Yeah, sorry, that's from a movie that I love.
So it's very oily wood, so you have to use oil with when you're sanding. You want to wet sand it because it will clog up the sandpaper. But it's absolutely beautiful wood, and that is Thuya, Thuya burl.
Well, Benjamin said it always looks like a load of nostrils to me.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, look at that. Look at that, though. Just beautiful. You can see the colors in that. It's going to be
very pretty.
I'm looking forward to. Like I said, I'm going to turn one live, I think, or I might pre-record it. I'm not big on lives for two reasons. One reason
Why's that, Rob?
One reason is I hate sanding and having people watch me sand, because depending on how things turn out, you may be sanding for a long time. And the other reason, I don't know what the other reason is. I made this camera stand, but it's still a bit awkward.
You're very shy too, Rob.
A little bit. I'm a bit, a little bit of an introvert. I'm a bit of a loner.
Do you know the thing is with sanding? If you're, I mean, obviously not with a piece like this wood, because obviously you don't want to use 2 pieces of really expensive wood for a demonstration. But you can do lives where you can have a piece that's already sanded to the point you want, right? So you can get it to the point before sanding, and then you can get it to the point of after sanding. And just talking through the process of sanding is a lot quicker than doing the sanding. So you can always do that. That's what a lot of professional demonstrations, you're not allowed to sand because of health and safety.
Well, that's the thing too. If you've got an audience in front of you and you're sanding and creating all this dust, and there's you're not going to have an dust extractor and stuff like that when you're doing a live demonstration generally. Like the wood shows, for example. I do the wood show with Greg from Killian Tools. He sells carbide cutters and bars in Canada. A free little thing there for him. But the thing is, if I start turning something big like a bowl, even a small 5-6 inch bowl, if I turn something like that little dish, it's going to throw sawdust and stuff all over the product. So you know, it's not professional for people to come over to our booth and look at product that's covered in sawdust. So it's difficult.
It's all authentic.
Very authentic. You get free dust.
Ruby has offered to do the filming for you for any of your lives. So you've taught her everything she knows.
And the problem I find too with the way my lathe is set up is you can't stand behind it. I used to, when I first started on YouTube, when I didn't know anything, shouldn't have been allowed. My lathe was further out from the wall, and I could have the camera on either side of the lathe. And so it was a lot easier to access places and whatever. But it was, I don't know.
I'm demonstrating is hard. I mean, I very, as people know, I very rarely get to finish a piece when I'm doing a demo. But then again, it's because of what you mentioned in the interview. I'm always trying something new, so I don't necessarily know what the end product is going to look like anyway, right?
You often attack it with pyro or something afterwards, and it looks totally different.
Yeah,
you know, I remember when you.
That is why I did the pyro on this, because it's only spruce, it's builder's lumber, and I did this as a test piece. The end grain is horrible. You can't get a nice finish on end grain on this. I mean, you can see at the bottom, I didn't finish the bottom. I've still got the points marked so that I remember how I did it. It's just a horrible open grain, right? So that's why the pyro. But you can, I mean, that's a show, and that's a demonstration in itself. How to bring a piece from just looking punky or with tool marks and bringing it to a finished piece by just using enhancement, pyro, burning and stuff like that. You can hide, I suppose, in a way, a lot of stuff, but it still completely transforms the look of the piece too. So yeah, it's
at the end of the day, a super sharp tool is critical. You want to sharpen that tool before you think it needs sharpening, because you're just going to get that. It's going to just cut so much easier. And sanding, you want to, and I mentioned this, I've got a new video that I'm uploading for the wood show, and it's on the 6th on the wood show. And I mentioned on that you've got to sand at the low grit until there's no tear out. If you've got any tear out, any tool marks, you want to get rid of all of those with the first grit that you start with. If they're still there, if that grit that say you start at 180 and you're not getting rid of those marks and you just press harder, it's not going to do it. You have to go back to maybe 100 grit, maybe 80. I don't know. It depends on the wood, depends on the cut, depends on the tear out, on the end grain, all of that stuff. If you can get a really sharp tool, a really gentle cut, follow all the way through, you're going to definitely have less tear out. And if you do have any tear out or tool marks, make sure you get rid of all of that with your first grit. And then work your way through the grit slowly. And every grit will remove the scratches from the previous grit. That's the intention until you get to the grit that you wanna end up with. And that's it's hard to do that live.
When I was learning turning, obviously I'd started with doing really crappy bowls using rubbish wood, literally just using any crappy wood that I can get. But you know what? That's actually a really good way to learn, because if you can get a good cut on a crappy wood, then you're really mastering the art of your tools. You're getting to a point where you can get a nice finish, because then once I did move on and someone gave me, I forget who gave me a nice piece of wood. Someone gave me a nice piece of wood at UKIS, I think was the first time I had proper hardwood to turn. And when I went turning that, I was like, holy cow, I'm getting a really nice finish on this. It's nothing compared to the crappy pine and stuff like that I've been turning. So I think that was quite a good learning curve for me, was to be able to get the tool control and finish crap wood. Then you're going to be able to do it a lot easier on decent wood.
Yeah. Every wood's going to cut differently,
right?
And depending on grain direction as well. If you've got lots of movement in the wood, like for this one, for example, the grain goes in every direction. So you're gonna.
I haven't turned a burl yet. A burl, whatever people want to call it. I've not turned one yet. Well, apart from the small piece that I got from Mike Walt.
The piece you stole from Mike Walt all those years ago.
Mike Walt gave me. This is an awful rumor that Mike started. I did not steal. I've
still got a piece that I haven't turned yet of that same piece of wood.
I turned him a piece from that and sent it back to him. So come on, does a thief send back the stuff he stole?
Hey, you kept the shavings.
True.
You kept the shavings, so you should have sent him a bag of shavings too. You got it all back now. Yeah, plus the finish. Anyway.
Hey, Rob.
Yes.
Let's do this.
Fascinating facts.
You
fascinating
wrong,
facts. Have you got some?
Fascinating facts. Well, not really. Okay. Well, I kind of have. I tried looking for some fascinating facts on multi-axis turning, multi-axis sculpting and stuff like that. And pretty much of it is all covered in what Barbara's told us and what we already know. So there's no, other than artists and things like that. So I went down a different route, and I looked at the axes of the world.
Did you know the planet's round and it spins?
Yeah, exactly. So
it's not flat.
No.
We got any?
So
flat
I went with this.
Out there?
I went to the top 5 facts about the Earth's axes and tides. All right. So it's a bit different, but it's still facts. Did you know that number 1, day and night during Earth's year-long orbit round the sun is almost it almost rotates once a day round its axis, an imaginary line passing through the north and south pole, creating day and night. So that's an axis. It's multi-axis, even though it's going around the one. The season's Earth's axis tilts at 23.5 degrees exactly. When Earth orbits the sun, the North Pole spends 6 months leaning towards the sun and 6 months leaning away from it. Did you know that, Rob?
No, I was reading the comments. I didn't hear a word you said, mate.
Oh, thanks. The Earth's tides are caused by gravity of the moon. Earth's water on the side nearest to the moon is pulled, causing the water to bulge. This is known as high tide. I didn't actually realize what high tide was. Spring, yeah, exactly. That's why half the year you're fat and half the year you're not.
Yeah, winter time's worst.
Spring tide, the sun also affects the tides. And when the sun and moon are aligned with the earth, their combined gravities create the highest tide, called spring tide. And a neap tide, however you want to pronounce that, when the sun and moon are not lined up, but are instead at right angles to each other, their gravities cancel each other out, creating the Earth's lowest neap tides.
I can't say her name either. Leona's turned out. Leona,
yeah. No, it's Leona.
I say Leona.
Leona. Yona,
Yeah, really. On that same principle, talking about your sphere, the Earth, and all that,
Yeah.
the moon is what fascinates me, because when you look at the moon, it does actually rotate. It rotates at the exact same speed that it's rotating around the Earth. So you only get to see one face of it. If it didn't rotate, you'd see the whole thing as it rotates around. So it does rotate, but you only get to see the same face. It does. You see a little bit either side occasionally, but and when it passes in front of the sun, it's the exact same bloody size. What's the odds of that?
But if it turned completely 180 and you did see the other side, you would see, and this is a fact, you would see Barbara Dill turning the other side of it as it wobbled around the Earth. That's a fact. That's how she learnt all her skills.
I don't know. It's them there aliens on the other side of the moon.
Some would say that Barbara might be a bit of an alien when it comes to wood turning, because she does things that she's got
mad
skills.
Mad skills.
Yes. So that's the fascinating facts this week.
Facts.
So you've got a have you?
You have jigs and tools. Do jigs and tools.
Jigs and tools. Jigs and tools. Jigs and tools. Jigs and tools.
Now I mentioned a little bit earlier Stockroom Supply. They're in Canada, and they sell jigs and tools for the bandsaw. What happened?
Nothing. Carry on.
Oh, okay.
No,
So anyway, I was watching a video the other night, and it was a very enjoyable video. Lewis from the Klondike Craftsman, he's also in Canada. He turned basically a log like this one into a vase or a vase, however you want to say it, and it was live edge in a couple of spots. He said it was something that he turned in his early days, and he turned hundreds of them. I don't know how many, but he turned a whole bunch of them. He didn't put any finish on them. He just finished it with a bowl gouge, cutters, scrapers, and that was about it. Maybe a skew, but and the bottom of it, he would just simply use a Forstner bit to remove the little nib at the bottom and hollow it out at the top with a Forstner bit. Really simple. He reckoned he could make those in 5 minutes, but he would cut the log on the bandsaw. And what I'm getting at is the jig that he used back in the day. He didn't use it on the video because he didn't have it, but back in the day when he was making it, was something to support that log on the bandsaw, because when you pass this through a blade like this, what's going to happen is it's going to rotate that wood like that super fast, and you're going to get hurt. So you want to cradle it in something. So I'm going to have to stand up for this, folks.
Oh, listen for the back and the knees to crack. And
oh yeah, look. So two things. One thing is basically almost like a zero clearance board for the bandsaw, and on the underside you've got the two runners, which you want to make exactly to fit the runners on your bandsaw, and a stop. So this goes on the bandsaw table, and you can push it forward and it will stop at a certain point. Now what I've done is I've put these two 1/4 20 nuts in there. They're the hammer-in ones. So
1/4
20, so I can screw something to this side, which is the left side of the blade. So as I'm looking at it on the left side of the blade, I can put my log there, and the log will basically be cradled in this. So for safety's sake, the log sits there like that. This is screwed to that board, and you can basically push that board through, and it is now safely held in that cradle. So that's one option to safely cut cookies or biscuits, whatever you want to call them, from the end of a log, or just cut sections of a log off safely. The other option would be to you could almost screw a piece of wood here flat, and that would also hold it so that it doesn't spin. If it's screwed to a piece of wood, not my arm, if it was screwed to a piece of wood longer than this, then that would hold it from spinning as well. But yeah, if you just cut that through, I need to make one of those. Yeah. When it grabbed the log. Yeah, if you just push this through the blade like this, it's going to grab and it's going to possibly spin it, and you could potentially get hurt, or it could snap that blade, and then who knows what's going to happen. It's not a good day. But Stockroom Supply, they have 2 jigs that I'm aware of. One is, I'm not going to name them because I can't remember what they're called, but one will grab a log and you can actually cut boards out of it. So it will cut boards out of it. And the other one is for bowl blanks. Take a piece of wood and it basically holds it between 2 points. So it's not jogging around on the table, because that's when it's going to bind the blade as well. And let's just imagine that this is an uneven blank, and then it spins on just 2 points and it cuts it perfectly. I've seen him, Ethan at Stockroom Supply, I've seen him cut piece of wood on his bandsaw with no tension, hardly any tension on the blade, and he does an amazing job. So that's it really, folks. Just jigs and tools. Be very safe when you're cutting logs on a bandsaw, and that's just a cheap jig that I made, and it works great.
Hey,
so
Rob,
yes,
can you feel it in the air tonight?
Phil Collins.
Yeah.
I wish I had his money, I tell you that.
Yeah, don't we all wish we had his money?
Yeah.
We're near enough there, Rob. We're near enough there. It's 11 o'clock.
When is it over? I don't know. I can't remember. Never remember.
It's 11 o'clock. It finishes, Rob.
Oh,
yeah,
well done.
Well done for remembering that. It's a great memory. You sound out of breath, mate. I'm glad you sat down there. You sound as if you're getting a bit out of breath with all that movement.
I'm out of breath.
Yes. So there is no other sections this evening. I forgot to use one of the bloodies, didn't I? I didn't do an interview with, but it doesn't matter because I didn't have it ready anyway. But I'll have that ready for the next time. So yes, just to wind up the show, thank you very much to Barbara. That was a fantastic interview.
Thank you, Barbara. That was amazing.
It will be here for your viewing pleasure. You can go ahead and watch that again. I'll also be sending a copy of it to Barbara so she can upload it to her own YouTube channel if she so wishes.
What's Leona asking? What was the site? Which site? Are you talking about Stockroom Supply?
I might not have been listening, Carol. So Carol asked a question. So let's go up to Carol.
Can you link to the jig site? Stockroom Supply.
Yeah, I'll get the link off of Rob. I'll put it in the descriptions below.
Yeah.
Rob, you can put the link in the chat because you can do stuff like that.
You'll have to give me a minute.
That's all right. We'll throw it in the chat quickly. But yes, thank you very much, Barbara. All of Barbara's social media down. Oh, excuse me, in the link below. Her website is fantastic. If you go over to her website, it's got all the information you need that she shares with you to do with Multiaxis. And like I said, if you ask her a question, she will answer it for you. Lovely lady. So, just want to ask if there is anybody that you would like if you would like anyone interviewed on our show, if there's anyone in particular you would like to get to know, we will go out of our way to try our very best to get in touch with said people and get them on for an interview. We're trying to interview people that haven't necessarily been interviewed before on other shows. And it's difficult to get hold of some of them, but there are a lot of woodturners out there that are doing a niche kind of thing. I would love Max Brosey to maybe do an interview with us. I'm going to get in touch with Max and see if he will do an interview, because he does some awesome stuff, and he's also here in Ireland. So hopefully I can get that organized. Rob, you have one guy lined up, don't you? Or
Yeah,
you have asked. We won't mention it yet. Oh, you are going to mention him, yeah. Okay, go on then. No, that's all right. You can. I didn't know whether it would have been confirmed or not. So
yeah, he said he would definitely go do an interview. Cool. So Jeff Hornan from the Walnut Log in the US, he is also the Yorkshire Grit Hampshire Sheen retailer in the US. He also sells Nova trucks and lathes and other stuff. But he's a pretty interesting chap, and he's pretty artistic. He's got a history behind him as well, which is interesting to listen to. So I'm going to be interviewing him in the near future. Like Steve said in the past, we're not going to do an interview every single week.
No.
But yes, I think maybe next interview will be Jeff.
Yeah. Rob CP would like to get Cindy Drozda on if we can. I can only ask and see. Some professional turners like to keep it professional. They don't like to do these amateur shows, and we are, at the end of the day, we are an amateur show. We are amateur wood turners, but we like to get professionals on if we can to talk about their genre, as it were. That's
an interesting point too. At what point can you consider yourself a professional turner? I saw somebody mention it the other day somewhere, and they said, do you make money from wood turning? And if you make money from wood turning, then does that class you as a professional wood turner because you're making money from it? So it's an interesting question. Is it years of experience? Is it, or what is it?
I think it's what follows the professional, though. Professional turner is a very open flower, as it were, but professional teacher of wood turning, a professional production turner, a professional demonstrator of a particular, it depends on what follows that professional. I am a professional blagger of wood turning. That's my, I am professional at blagging my way through anything I do to do with.
I don't even know what you just said. Blagging. What's that?
Blagging is making it up, Rob. Making it up. Yeah. Wow, you are really, really old. You don't know cool words at all.
Well, you're in Ireland, so it's probably not that cool.
Leona, I have asked that gentleman, and he really doesn't like being in front of the camera. I did ask Steve, and he declined, but that's for his own reasons, and we totally understand that too. I would have loved to have had an interview with Steve Jones, but it's not something that he does. You will very rarely see Steve Jones in front of a camera. It's not. You'll see his hands and his skew.
Wow.
You'll see his skew, and
I can only imagine how sharp that skew is.
Yeah. So definitely, we will. I can ask all these guys, and they can only say no. But definitely, we'll be getting interviews in the future, and Yuval I have as well. I'm going to ask Yuval as well. He's not turning at the moment. I don't think
I haven't seen him in a while. What's going on?
Well, I think with everything that went on in Italy, Yuval had his own business, and it was all to do with tourism, right? He was a tour guide. That was his business.
Yeah.
So when Corona hit, bye tour guide. So that I'd say he's had a tough old time of it, and we love Yuval, and we miss him on the socials. He does pop up and like things and comment on Facebook, but I'll get in touch with Yuval and see would he be interested in doing an interview with us. Definitely, another really nice guy. So that's it, Rob. I think we'll call it a night.
Yes.
I hope you enjoyed it, guys. Please hit the thumbs up. Please share the video out. Please shout it out. It was fantastic what you all did with the Ruby video. You all shared it. Ruby's been talked about so much. She's joined people's live shows, and she's interacted with the YouTube community, and it's fantastic. It's amazing when you can actually bring someone that's already in the limelight, in the wood turning world limelight, but bring them into another limelight like YouTube. Ruby wouldn't have been very prominent in YouTube world, and to be able to do that and then put her out there and actually show people that she's a real person and that she's nice and she, you know, she's willing to share her stuff. That's what we want to do, and to introduce them to our community as well as the larger wood turning community. So thank you all for doing what you have done and welcomed Ruby into our big family. So that's it. Cheers, Rob. I'll see you next time.
Cheers, Steve.
Good luck, Click.
No, I'm Clack.
Oh, all right. Good luck, Clack.
Okay, Click.
Oh, jeez, you have to be so pedantic.
No, I'm just saying. I've
forgotten how you end this. Oh yeah, I've got to put the old doodah on, haven't I? Right, that's it, folks. Thank you very much,
guys. You'll have a good
next
night.
week.
Take
I'm
care.
live tomorrow evening, so don't forget that.
You're always live, Steve.
I'm not always live. I'm not live when I'm not live.
No, that's true.
See you guys.
See ya.